Hello, this is Mary James with Passive House Accelerator. Thanks for tuning in to this special bonus episode of the Passive House podcast, recorded live at the Retrofit Canada conference in Vancouver, BC. And I'm sitting here with Darla Simpson of the Zero Emissions Innovation Center.
Yep, the Zero Emissions Innovation Center, or ZEIC.
ZEIC, which is based in Vancouver. And you were part of a panel yesterday on deep retrofit accelerators. And I wanted to hear what your program looks like, because you guys have been doing this for a little longer, perhaps, than some of the other panelists. So I want to hear how it's going.
Thanks so much. Actually, our program is relatively new. But one of the things that we've done that's been really successful is just bringing together other programs, other actors in this space under one umbrella that we call the BC Retrofit Accelerator. So working with folks like Landlord BC, Condominium Homeowners Association, BOMA BC, and BC Nonprofit Housing Association, we're actually able to bring together expertise that has been working in the space for a number of years and kind of leverage and break down some of the silos that often happen between these different sectors when they're trying to approach decarbonization.
Sorry, what's BOMA BC?
Building Owners and Managers Association of British Columbia.
Okay.
Apologies to lots of acronyms.
Yes, always.
So that we have a number of partners that we're bringing together to actually deliver some of these outreach programs to building owners. But then on top of that, as a charitable nonprofit, we have an opportunity to support research. We have an opportunity to kind of bring together some of the local government actors, utility actors in this space to kind of convene, coordinate, and align on some of the regulatory change that we're seeing in the province and facilitate that two-way conversation between what we're learning through the programs from the building owners' experience and feeding that up to the policy level. And at the same time, learning kind of where the policy is going and the conversations they're having, and feed that back into our programs so that they're fully complementary.
And do you have a concierge-style service where you help building owners through a retrofit process? Is that part of your offerings?
Yeah, so each one of those partners that I mentioned, they will be operating their own concierge service. And it's full support for building owners right from kind of the initial opportunity assessment through, all of the energy studies, the detailed design work, the support to get the owners on board, to get to yes, we say. We can help with the handoff to financing or accessing rebates, and then support through implementation to find the right contractors, the right consultants to do the work. And then one of the things that we're quite keen on is the monitoring and verification, or measurement and verification post-project. So making sure the projects perform as intended. And if they don't, helping those owners to go back and figure out, what has gone wrong? How can we tweak it so that they're getting the performance that was intended through the project?
Have you had any projects already go through this process? And if so, roughly how many?
So through those partners that have had pilots up and running, they have buildings that are in the process or they're in different stages of the process. But our Retrofit Accelerator will officially launch this summer. So we are building on some of that success, but this is still a relatively new approach for us.
And in Vancouver or in BC, isn't there some sort of retrofit policy now that's in place?
So for new construction, we have the Energy Step Code in British Columbia, and then we have our recent Net Zero Step Code. So that's all for new construction. And then in the city of Vancouver, they do have some reporting and then emissions regulation coming for large buildings. They are unique in the province in that they have their own charter and they can do that. Provincially, There is some discussion about the highest equipment efficiency standards, particularly around heating and hot water. So we're starting to see some of that action at the provincial level, but as of yet, there are no regulations or policy around retrofits in existing buildings.
Well, it's exciting that you have so many partners to draw on for your program launch. I mean, it would be really challenging to start from scratch. And how long have you been with ZEIC? And you're shepherding the retrofit program, as I understand it.
Yeah, so I've been with ZEIC now for about a year and a half. So relatively new to the position. I did spend 12 years at an energy efficiency engineering firm working on retrofits prior to this, so kind of deeply steeped in this space before joining ZEIC. But we're really fortunate. There's just been in the province a confluence of different actors, from the local governments to the utilities to the province, and then all of these industry associations and private sector actors, public sector actors coming together. So I think that we're seeing the need here. The heat dome that we had that killed 600 people really illustrated that climate change is upon us and we need to act. And that has galvanized some support to come together and start solving for this multi-crisis. It's reducing GHG emissions, it's increasing climate resilience, and helping to address the affordability issues in the province as well.
Well, speaking of affordability for building owners, can you just give us sort of an overview of what financing options there are for implementing efficiency measures or decarbonization measures?
So it does somewhat depend on which sector you're in. So our social housing partners, and the social housing sector, there are a lot of federal and even provincial incentives to do this retrofit work. But the stacking of that funding is quite the barrier to make all of those different metrics and deliverables and timelines line up. On the commercial side, there is a fair bit of private financing available. And then, of course, we have CIB retrofit incentive funding that's coming from our federal government. So those are administered by a number of organizations. So on the commercial owner side, there's a fair bit of support. But I would say on the smaller actors, the market rental folks, and the strata and condo owners in particular, there hasn't really been any support for them as of yet. And 25% of British Columbians live in multifamily buildings, and they have to, they're actively looking for solutions in this space as well. So we really need to figure out a way to better support them. There are some systemic barriers to them accessing financing. There's a lot of creative people on our team at the province and at other areas of government that are actively looking at solving that problem.
Yes, it's quite a burden because I understand, I'm not sure what percentage of those multifamily buildings that you were talking about are owned by strata boards, but it was brought up yesterday that strata boards are responsible for sort of guiding these retrofits, but they may not have very much experience at all.
And that's, it's a strange model that you have a volunteer with no background in building management that's managing a multi-million-dollar asset for, it can be 300 unit owners. That's a big ask. And so, we have a lot of great property managers that work in this space, but they just don't have the capacity to support on the retrofit side. And that's why these retrofit accelerators and the concierge services are so critical, because they need the support. They just don't know what they don't know. And so being able to kind of bring them in, provide that education and capacity building, and coach them through some of these projects, I'm really confident that when we start getting a few rolling, they'll be very replicable and we'll see them kind of take off across the province.
Yeah, that's great. And as you mentioned, overheating is, an increasingly big concern. Wildfires may not be such a concern in Vancouver, but certainly, obviously smoke is a big issue, but which air tightness, of course, helps with. But for overheating solutions, can you just talk about, since you've had a lot of experience in this space, what kind of retrofit solutions are being looked at to address overheating?
In BC, especially because and in the lower mainland on the island, I will say, because of our more moderate climate, I think heat pumps are the solution that we're looking to primarily. It solves the electrification issue, switching away from natural gas, and it also provides the cooling to the space. And we can even add some air filtration onto that can help with the ventilation of the space during wildfire events, for example. So that's kind of the primary one that we're looking at from a mechanical perspective. I think there's a lot of interest in more passive cooling measures like solar shading, awnings. What can we do just in general with green roofs and that sort of thing. A lot of conversations, but we're not sure exactly what the best path forward is for some of these passive solutions, especially on our larger towers. It's a little bit more complicated.
Right. Well, thank you for bringing up passive solutions, which is something, of course, that we do try to address a lot in our coverage. Anyway, thank you so much for your time. I really appreciate your expertise and spending time with us.